Welcome back to another episode of Boys Love. I told Sunset about you.
And you know what? I told Sunset about you.
And what did you tell her?
And I told her the truth. That you're
Sunset?
Yes.
I know Sunset.
Sunset Jones? Yeah.
She owes me $5. Yeah.
That you're a rotted,
Gutted
beast. We have to laugh.
We have to laugh because we didn't for 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
So that's
also
fun.
it's just us family tonight.
This is our last. This is a huge day for us. This is kind of the end of an era.
This is the end of an era because
I'm really making it sound like we're ending the channel.
And it could because it's an
we're
end
not
of an
going to
era.
watch anything better than this.
It's an end of an era for multiple reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're never going to watch anything that will come close to this. I don't know. Miss Love in the Big City might be...
Until someone makes us rewatch or watch, I guess, for the first time and like recap.
What's the other like best of all time?
The Miss Girl, my favorite.
Your favorite?
My favorite, the KBL. The second season. What is it called?
Oh, To My Star 2.
To My Star 2, yes. To My Star 2.
It's like, yeah. It's in
but
the
it's
elite
completely
tier.
different.
Yeah, it's not doing the same thing.
No.
It's a end of an era for multiple reasons. We'll never watch another BL as good as this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also the last time that we are choosing what we're recapping on YouTube.
Yeah.
To some extent. Okay. We are giving our Patreon tiers the chance of a lifetime. Basically, we're giving them choices and they vote.
Choices.
We're giving them choices and they vote what they watch. So if you're like, please watch this next, it's not up to us, it's to the people.
Go join the Patreon. Let them know.
Because the people will now do it. And people are campaigning. We have, it's important to vote. Please.
Yeah. It's important to vote.
It's important to vote. So
how have you enjoyed? Let's just start before we get into the episode.
The show.
Now that it's just the two of us,
yeah.
You don't have to pretend like we like the show now. How have you been enjoying
recapping
I told
and watching
about you?
Just the show in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really fun to watch the show.
You would say this show has been fun to watch. That's the word you're choosing to describe this experience?
It's been fun to watch the show and recap it the way we did. I've loved all of our guests.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very
I
fun.
do agree that this is the show that you would want to talk about with other BL
This is a
fans.
perfect show to talk about other people with.
Yes.
Sometimes we've covered shows where it's like, is there really enough to talk about? You know what I mean? But
yes.
like this one is...
This one we couldn't stop talking.
No.
We literally couldn't. With all of our guests...
It could have gone on like twice as long.
Yes, twice as long. Absolutely. So it's been fun in that way because I feel like we're engaged in conversation that even though, we kiki kaka, this is like not our first BL, right? But it's the first time I feel like we're like connecting more with the like BL community in conversation because it feels like this is a pivotal...
It's a touchstone.
BL to watch. Yeah, for people.
Sure.
So I really enjoyed that. I wish there was a like 2.5, 3 hour movie version that we could watch in a cinema.
Yeah.
Because everything about it just feels so cinematic.
I don't know. I think like every moment of this show
they've done such a great job. I could see them doing like a 5-hour thing and then just like doing like an intermission in between.
Yeah. It'd be a long day.
It'll be a long day. It is the specificity of it just being this one moment of time in a person's life.
Right. It's not a show. It's not a show that is like, it's not reinventing the genre.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not,
but that's the beauty of it.
Doing anything that is like it's a pretty much a standard fare teen like
going to
coming of age story. Yeah.
But
it's just done.
Everything
every
is
aspect of it is done so well. Yeah.
This is done so well. This is so competent. And like, do we treat it like it's better than the rest of like BL. And I think that deters from like what good storytelling can happen in the genre.
Yeah.
But I also think not everything is going to be an Itsay, right? Like there are shows where it's like, we've got 8 episodes, we got to make it fun, you know, or like this is
not every movie is Citizen Kane. And there's a lot. I mean, like that's the thing
why there's
about,
a Matrix, right?
Like, well, right, there's a Matrix, and that's why like cinema or movies, television is so impressive when it's done well.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people working on it.
Yes.
That it can go wrong on many different levels. And or just not be like as well thought out as this is, right? Like I wouldn't say like a lot of stuff is like bad per se, but it's just like middling fair. Like that's pretty much standard of what's anywhere. Like BL, American television,
like syndicated television,
movies,
yeah.
like most stuff is just good. It's just like I enjoyed it. I received entertainment, and that at the very end of the day is the purpose of entertainment. It's just simply there for you to like sit and enjoy and be entertained in some capacity. But it is very hard to make media that is like engaging and thought provoking and stylish and well done on all levels.
Yeah.
And this like is exemplary of that. Like it's not easy. Everyone came together and had like a unifying vision, and that's why this show works so well. But that doesn't mean that like nothing else deserves to be watched.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because you wouldn't know that this is good if you didn't watch the things that weren't good. If you only watch like the only things you ever watched were like every Academy Award winning Best Picture, like you wouldn't appreciate how good it is.
Exactly. It feels like you're selling yourself short of like, well, you need to like, have a broad horizon.
Understanding of. And I also think, and then I swear to God, we'll talk about the episode, but I think like it's important to watch content where the content is.
Meet where the content wants you.
Meet it where it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Meet it where it is.
I am not going to, I knew going into I Told Sunset About You, this is going to be good because everyone was like, this is really, you know, a standout.
And as soon as we watch the first episode, you can tell what they want you to get.
Yep. But not every show is trying to do that. And nor really, frankly, should it. Because some stories are just like sweet, trite little nonsense, which is like perfectly fluffy and fun. Like that's what those shows are trying to do as well. To watch something that is just trying to do that, but you put the lens of like, well, it should have done this, that, and the other. It detracts from what it's doing. I think it's fair to have critiques of like things that they could improve on, but if you were to go watch Indiana Jones and you were like, well, it wasn't really like Star Wars, then it's like, but Mama, that's not
Indiana
what's
Jones
going
wasn't
on.
trying to be Star Wars.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm not even really talking about Itsay necessarily at this point, but I think because Itsay has this conversation around it of being like the best BL of all time or whatever. I understand that, and I think it makes perfect sense why people say that, and I would probably agree, to be honest. But I also think there's like this thing that happens, and I've talked about this before, but like I think there's this thing that happens like with media that is marketed toward women, where people like have this
are always surprised, like, wow, well, this is good.
Yes, they assume it's going to be bad.
It's going to not meet like a certain pedigree or caliber.
Yes, yeah.
The extra
directorial
thought,
vision,
the intention that they are clear in trying to tell a story, and it was just like very effective.
Yeah,
in what they wanted to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's I think from what I've gathered from the show, they want to tell a genuine, like specific story about like a friendship that has a friendship rivalry that has always been like in a weird place, and as they've like matured and gotten older, they realized it's because they love each other, you know. Or I mean,
it's like it's the only way to watch the show is to be like, oh, they're soulmates.
Yeah,
but they don't realize
they don't realize it.
Yeah.
It's a classic romance, classic BL trope.
One of these characters could probably say to the other, "You're the other half of my soul."
Yeah. Yes, they could.
You don't remember that quote?
Is that in the show?
No. That's from someone who has worn this shirt before.
Ah! Which one of these? That one? That one?
Should we talk about the episode? Should we talk about the finale?
What did you... Oh, just a general...
On the finale?
What did you think of this final episode?
It ended kind of exactly how I thought it would.
It ended exactly where I thought it was going to go. Not necessarily like plot wise. Like I was like, someone is going to get...
I didn't know specifics.
I think with the school thing, I was like, one person is not going to get what they want, but they have to learn the lesson. I interpreted it as like, it's probably going to be Tay because he had the biggest hubris fall from grace in episode 4.
Well, Tay is like a pure example
Greek
of like a protagonist who has to
learn his lesson.
Who has to like have the character change.
Yes.
He has to have a character.
He is the Joseph Campbell hero's journey, Henny, because he went
through it, mama, and came back a changed person, and his worlds are different now because of it. I just, again, like, it just was done perfectly. Like,
yes.
it
gently, but not shying away from like what needs to happen within the characters, right?
And I think it makes sense that it doesn't end with a kiss.
No.
I'm sure there was consternation about it. Sure. I have no doubt. But for me, it's about their feelings.
I know they have established.
It's about Tay's feelings.
Honestly, the way that the kiss. Okay, let's talk about it. The kiss in the show.
The one
kiss in the show was honestly like the tipping point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like they've used the kiss as a way to be like, this is a relationship that handles how they share love differently than like what you would get. I mean, obviously, you expect a kiss from like from this genre, a romance genre.
It always ends with a kiss. Yeah,
it always ends with a kiss. But like, they have shown that like Tay shows his love.
But this is where it is a BL coming of age story.
Yes, because
really the story is about Tay overcoming his own mental block and internalized homophobia, which is like we actually like. Without saying the words internalized homophobia, I don't think you have to say it necessarily for it to be very clear what's going on.
Very clear.
And it was clear before this episode, to be quite clear.
Yes.
But I just think it's like
it felt right. It
kind of perfect.
It felt satisfying because episode 4 was such a fall emotionally. It has to be that this feels like correct in how just the waves start to settle back into like normal tide. Yeah.
And also I like
that like no one's holding grudges. Everyone is like the family, the friends, they're like, that's life. This happens, and we just have to keep going.
You have to keep going.
You have to keep going. Makes sense, right? Like you just big things happen.
Well, that's why like I think stories that take place in school are always really effective because you are forced to see those people again. Yeah. So like we get the scene in the PE class where he sees Tarn again, and we don't know how long it's been since the freak out where like he gives it up and blah blah blah, but it's pretty soon thereafter. And she's like it's funny that like they have this big freak out, and you would think like I never want to see him again, right? Like that would be Tarn's energy, but like they still have to share. You go to school together.
Yeah,
you sit next to each other ostensibly in that one class or whatever,
and then it's the feeling in high school or in school when school's all done. That like feeling of like graduation, and you're like. We did it, and it was done.
And like, I will say, like looking back on high school, and even to some extent college, but more so high school, it is crazy that you're just like trapped in a box with the same people for 4 years straight.
Yeah.
And that's assuming like you didn't also go to like elementary school and middle school with all those people too. So like you've grown up with all these people. You're so used to seeing them all the time. That's the energy of like when you're in high school and you're like, oh my God, we're going to be friends forever. And then I hate to tell you, we're just going to do major points. Yeah. I'm not going to go beat by beat.
Because the episode is like in 3 acts, which is kind of crazy.
Yes. So act 1 is like after the
aftermath.
Fall. Yeah, aftermath. Tay goes off the grid. He deletes his chat with OAO.
But still stays in the group chat.
But he's still in the group chat. I mean, he's not going
to just ostracize
everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's weird.
And I think it's also that they've established that this friend group is kind of like, we're not perfect, right? None of us are perfect, but like we're all kind of like who we have right now. There's that feeling of like, no matter what happens, we're still going to be friends.
They feel like high school friends.
Yeah.
They feel
so
like...
I'm curious, like in part 2, like how if that even stays.
Right. I think that the beauty of this friend group is how they are supportive without being... It's not beaten over the head.
Yeah.
The fears that he brings up in this episode with Hoon of like, what will my friends say? Is like, he's saying that about his friends, but that's not what he means.
No.
He's saying like, what about society is going to look down on me?
Yeah.
Because I like OAO.
Yeah.
And he's using the words friends. He's using his mom as examples, but like, at the end of the day, it's really just the realization that I think a lot of queer people have when they finally like put the puzzle pieces together and been like,
now I have to...
Because the first realization is like, oh, I like someone that it's not normal for me.
Yeah.
But then...
It's like, now I have to be in the world as this.
Yeah. And you know what the world is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I think the show does a really good job of like, when he says that, you as the audience member are like, but your friends are going to be okay with it.
We've seen 4 episodes of your friends, your mom, like like everyone has shown like love and empathy to that. They're not going to.
Yeah.
They're going to be good to you.
Yeah. So they have the PE class. He tells Tarn that he wants to like confess to her, and she's like, I don't want to do this with you right now.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great.
He like tries to talk to his teacher too, because he didn't take that spot. He has to like repass the test again, but he hasn't been showing up to class because he was already going to be a shoo-in.
Yeah. He had senioritis.
Yeah. Which, girl.
And the professor was like, or the teacher was like, sorry, I'm not giving you tests again.
Yeah.
Sorry, girl. You made your choice. You better pass this exam. OAO and Boss are very close.
Very close now.
And they have the Chinese tutoring class, and they're going like round robin, and each of them saying like, I'm giving you a blessing to each person, blah, blah, blah. Or like, whoever you pick, blah, blah, blah. And Tay does not give it to OAO. He gives it to Philip. And then Philip gives it to OAO. And OAO gives it to Boss. And it's very like, thank you for
always believing in me.
Always believing in me. And already you can tell Tay is
not handling it well.
I mean, Tay is like genuinely heartbroken in this whole episode.
Because it's like, it's
completely
done.
Understandable.
It's like past already.
Yeah.
Like he's missed his shot.
And Boss stands up and is like, oh, can I return it back to the same person? And the teacher's like, sure.
This was probably the Boss stuff really made me cry the hardest in this episode.
I think it's because they've set up Boss as such like, he's such a, okay, if I was to say he is her fiance in Sleepless in Seattle, he's like he's Walter.
Yeah,
he's a
Walter.
good guy.
He's a good guy. He's not a
totally
loser,
understand
right?
why you would like him.
Yeah.
But it can't be them.
It can't be them.
It can't be them.
And it's not because of any faults of anyone. It's just the red string.
Yeah. It's the red string of fate for sure. The red shirt of hibiscus.
The red shirt of hibiscus.
Yeah.
The hibiscus bitch.
Yeah.
The coconut.
The coconut.
Boss basically
confesses in front of the class, which is crazy. It's like,
blah, 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 you've always believed in it. And I just want to say, like, you know, when I first moved or whatever, like, no one, I thought I was going to be alone, but you reached out to me and like became my friend. And like, I really like you. And at first I thought I was confused or like
He was like, at first I was just like, oh, I just wanted to be really close to you. But then I realized it's more than that.
It's more that I actually like you. And I hope that you can like open up to me too.
Yeah.
And the teacher was like, okay, why don't you guys go outside and talk about that? We're going to keep going. Personally, but that is great.
Yeah. Congrats.
Great for you. But if you just want to take that outside, if you want to just offline that chat, you know, after
and
the
Tay
meeting,
like cries through the whole thing.
Tay is just crying. He's literally looking back and forth and just crying because there are some words. There are just some words that Boss like is saying that he wishes he could say, but he doesn't know how.
He can't. This whole show, I've really been trying to not pick them for MVP because this show wouldn't work if it was any other. I genuinely don't think it would work if it was anybody else. This is like. Even without the like knowing the backstory of like they brought their own personal experience into these roles. Yeah, like it's so heightened and yet
heightened and emotional,
real.
But still so grounded.
Yeah.
It's like you wish that you could emote and evoke as much as like because as humans we want to, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to.
Well, and like that again, that's
like
the thing about being like a teenager is like that's the time when you do emote the most is because like. Again, everything is firing on all cylinders. Like your synapses can't stop, won't stop. So it makes complete sense that he's like crying during the scene. He's like crying during the test later. Like he cries with Hoon. Like I love how much he cries.
Me too.
Because I think, and every time he cries, there is like, of course, the realization has set in that he has like lost OAO.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreak, but it's also just like, it's like grief.
It's grief.
Yeah.
It's more than just heartbreak.
Yeah.
It's a loss of a really important person.
Yeah.
He could have gone his entire life being like, and if they never reconnected again, right?
Yeah.
Like it would have been fine. He would have just like been his self.
Yeah.
But because this opportunity came again and it just reopened those wounds that like I lost my best friend back in the day because of me.
Right.
Because of what I did.
Yep.
And now I did it again.
Yep.
But like in a worse way.
That's the end of Act 1. Act 2 is the admission exam day. So this is when they go take the test. OAO and Tay have this scene right before where they like talk to each other for the first time since everything has happened.
Yes, the firecrackers go off again to like wish them good luck, and they both hide because they're scared of it.
Yep, just like in their first episode.
And then they end up being in the same place again. And I mean, like OAO is they finally wish each other well, right? Just like good luck on your test. And Tay asks, How are you and Boss? And he says, we're getting to know each other more than friends.
Yeah.
And Tay says, that's great.
Bilkin's acting in this scene, I actually think this is the best. This is the best scene of this episode. Yes,
way more like this. He is smiling. He is like really like
he's really got the mask on.
But you get these small cracks that OAO obviously is seeing, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, what is it? Like, what? And he says, it's nothing. But you see it. It's just tiny breaks and cracks.
Yeah. And then OAO walks away and he like breaks down
throughout the test. He had to excuse himself so he could cry in the bathroom. And the entire time I was like, he's not going to finish the test. He's not going to be able to.
And he misses the last 7 questions.
And he misses the last questions. It's so, Adam, it's so good.
But it's like, what's good about it though, too, is like, everything feels real, right? Like it's not like, oh, and then the school catches on fire, so he can't take the test, right? Like it's not these massive external, like these huge set pieces as to like how things happened, how the
It's
plot
just
resolves.
the stillness of like you're going through all
And
these
it's
emotions and you go back to what you were
like
doing.
it would be more unbelievable if he was like he spent the whole test in the bathroom and he came back and he couldn't even do an answer.
Yes.
It's more realistic that he comes back and he can only finish the last 7 questions is what he can't finish. And so it's just enough for you to be like,
which is real life. That's
Right.
real life. You have to keep going.
Right.
You have to do the next thing.
well, and like it's enough to give you as the audience like it could be fine or it could not be fine.
yes.
You don't know. But it's on the verge enough that you're still in this like tense because the whole thing is like, are they going to get into these colleges or whatever? The other thing I want to talk about before they went to take their exam is that on his way out the door, he asks his mom to reopen the restaurant. And I just want to say that this show is made so much better by oh my God, this show, I can't stop crying. This show is made so much better because of the warmth of his family.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not, it is not schlocky where it's like, You Can Breathe Now, Simon, which is like a little like, it's great. It's a great scene in Love, Simon, but like everything for them feels real. The scene later with Hoon, when he cries with Hoon and Hoon tells him like, he's like saying all his fears about like, I can't like guys, like blah, blah, blah. And Hoon's like, people are going to like you and people are going to dislike you. And that is like, there's like a level that I think we are supposed to say to teens, to kids, everything's going to be okay. And
because you don't want to see them get hurt. That's what you say that to kids all the time. Right?
And it won't.
And it won't.
People are going to be awful. Yeah. Genuinely. They're going to be. It's going to happen no matter where you live, no matter what you do. You are going to run into another person that dislikes you because of who you are and who you love.
You are, what you're wearing. Literally, it could be anything, but you have no control over it.
And something about the way that he, even like his fear is like his mom is going to freak out. And he was like, she might not. But she might, and
you know her.
That's just what it is.
It's just going to take time. Right.
That's the other thing is like, when I came out, I had already done, okay, I shouldn't say all the work, because like you're just on the road of the work.
You were 15. What work, girl?
But you've already like made your piece of like, I'm going to come out. So there's some level of like, I accept the fact that I'm gay.
Yeah.
Right? There is a level of, I think, and I used to, especially when I was a teenager, I used to be very like this, where I was like, I've accepted it, so you should just automatically accept it. And there is a level of like, idealistically, they should, like just off the bat, they should just accept whatever. But it's more, people have a notion of who they believe you are. And I think that, and I'm not even trying to like speak up for people who like have shitty responses to people coming out to them. But I think the harder part is like, for someone who's told that, like who's on the receiving end of the coming out, is that they have to recontextualize everything about you.
Yeah.
Now there's the negative way to take it, which is that you've been lying all this time,
right?
Which is like, again, that's not how this works. But anyone who's watching this knows that. But like the kinder, gentler view is just like, I have to reframe your entire being in my mind to some degree.
Yeah.
And it is not an overnight fix. As long as it took you to have the first thought, maybe I'm gay, to the point that you came out, that same grace, I guess, technically should be bestowed upon those who are receiving that information as well. Although that's very hard to do, because the other thing is like, especially as an adolescent, you just want to be liked. You just want to be loved and like understood.
Yeah.
So it's hard to come out, and then even if the response isn't like what my mom did, where she went and got me presents, which was crazy. But I had like,
or my dad having a gallbladder attack,
Or his yes. And that was my fault, technically.
So those are two sides of the coin, honey.
Two sides of the coin. I like that this show portrays Hoon and Tae's mom in a way where I don't think that his mom is going to have a negative reaction. But I do think she's going to
take time, and she's going to have that big moment probably.
But they have established that he is so loved in that family. Even though it's very hard as a teenager to feel like you're loved, especially when you have like Hoon is your older brother. My God, this man is so
fine.
So fine.
Sweet.
So sweet, right? He's like kind of like the perfect son. So it's very easy to feel like you're the ugly duckling.
You're not going to be as good as him anyway. Oh, no matter what.
Right. That's all in Tae's head, and the show is very smart about displaying that and being like, he's saying this, but you have been watching the show and know objectively that it's very clear that he is like...
He's beloved in his family.
Yes. Even his mom, when she gets upset with him for giving up the...
It's more just like confusion, right? It's more... Yeah. It's...
Everything in this episode, she's like back to normal, right? She's still... I think it's supposed to be the morning after when he comes down to breakfast.
She still feeds him.
She gives him his plate. Like, she's... Right? She's not like... Whatever. He's still her son at the end of the day. I just think that like... That aspect of the show is handled so incredible. Every aspect of the show, but like that specifically is just so good and takes that fear of like, is this show going to become something that is like about the social thing of like
coming out to your family, like a family like to reckon with
disavows you or something like that, or your friend, like right? It's the same thing with the friends. It's the same idea. All of that is like in the show. It's in the melting pot of the show that there are these fears that we know that like gay people don't like. It's not. It's a heteronormative society.
Yes,
but we're going to take all of that away and just have it be an internalized fear, not because that's really all it is for everybody. No. That's not what the show is espousing at all. But in this example, because it's so specific, the show is not archetypal.
Yes.
That these characters, this is their situation, and it's still okay for him to be scared.
Yes.
But it's more interesting to watch them be able to flourish.
And we understand how scared he is. Support. We believe that he's scared. Even though, like, obviously as an audience, you're like, they all love you. It's so clear. But you are also just still as afraid as how he is afraid.
And you don't know anything. Like, you don't know until you know.
Yeah. But that's the thing, too. You don't know until you know. So, like, that's always an argument that I like to bring up with coming out, even though obviously like coming out is difficult and hard for everyone. You don't know what people in your life are capable of, good or bad, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you don't know what they're capable of if you don't try
give them the opportunity
to get to know who you really are.
And there are going to be people that like disappoint.
Yes.
That's just what it is.
But then there are people who will show up to your wedding. So even though you've just, you felt like that wasn't something that could even be possible, but they'll show up. So
the first person I ever came out to,
it's a pause for
I can't believe
emotion.
This is so stupid.
We're watching a comedy. I know we just said we're not gonna decide, but we're rigging the votes because we're watching, girl. Bitch. We're watching Cherry
I'm watching
Magic
a sex romp. I don't care. What's the horniest show possible?
That's what we're watching. Horny and funny. That's
we're watching my personal weatherman. That's what we're watching.
Yes! Honey.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
The first person I came out to was my priest at church, Susan. Because I'm Episcopalian and we have female priests. Thank you so much. Or I grew up Episcopalian, I should say.
Shout out to the Church of England, honey.
Shout out to the Anglican faith, mama. And I was so scared. I don't think that this needed to become this conversation, but I feel like we might as well.
I mean, he comes out.
He does come out.
He comes out in this episode.
I was so scared. I had asked her, this was like the summer before freshman year of college or high school. And I was so scared. I asked her to go out to like lunch after church. And we went to a place called Perkins, which is a chain in America. And I was so nervous that I asked her for a pen and paper, and I had to write it down and then pass it. And I'm sure for Susan, she was like, yeah, we knew, girl. But who has a trans child, I believe now, if what my mother tells me is correct. But that child could also be non-binary because my mom still isn't fully aware of what's going on there. So it's an either-or situation. I think if this had gone poorly, it could have set off a chain of events in which every coming out ever afterward was like bad. But she handled it so well that...
Do you think it was like the first time this has happened?
No. But she was also like the leader of our youth group at the time.
Yeah, so I'm sure
but I may have been the youngest person to ever come out to her. That's probably for sure. Yeah. But I mean, she said like all the things you're supposed to say, right? Like, especially in like as whatever, like you're made in God's image, things that feel you have to say and you should say and are true and whatever. And I think if it had gone poorly, I wouldn't have had the wherewithal to then keep going. Like if it had gone really poorly, I don't know if I would have then been able to keep. I just said that twice.
Yeah.
He has this scene with Hoon where Hoon is like, "Are you heartbroken?" And he doesn't answer anything.
No, he's trying to help, right? Is it Tarn? He shakes his head. No.
Well, first he says, "Did you have a fight with mom?" He's like, "No."
Is it Tarn?
Is it Tarn? Are you heartbroken?
No. Is it O?
Is it Oyo?
And he couldn't answer. He just like looks at him.
Yeah.
Right?
And then he says, "I like Oyo."
I like Oyo. And Hoon is like, if you like him, just go tell him you like him.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes into the conversation of Tay being like, but I can't like a guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he brings up his friends, brings up his mom, blah, blah, blah. And Hoon says, like, you can like whoever you like. At the end of the day, it's what will make you happy. The conversation about the mom being like, she will see if you're unhappy, if you're with someone that doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
Because
that will make her
and
unhappy.
that will make her not happy. Because all she wants to see is you happy.
And then it ends with like him teasing him a little bit,
because he says like, but Oyo already likes someone else.
Yeah. So he cries.
So it becomes like that realistic, like it comes back to earth almost. Because it's like, oh, you are just going through like what all teens are what everyone will go through about love.
Yeah.
And so it kind of is like, yeah, like, oh God, you're such a crybaby.
And that's the thing that like,
because that's the thing. When you come out, especially to family, you are so afraid that things will change. When what's comforting is that, especially if like you have a great relationship with your family or like a comforting relationship with your family, you don't want to admit this and then change everything that they can't go back to the way it was. Great. And so like it's when coming out stories do that thing of like, you come out to someone and they just treat you the same.
It's just the advice he would give if it was about Tarn.
If it wasn't, if it was about Tarn, if it was a girl.
If it would be the same thing. Like, that's what is like so sweet about the scene is that like his advice is exactly the same no matter what person he said he liked.
Yeah.
If he had said, I like Tarn, he'd be like, okay, so go tell her. Just tell her.
Yeah.
And she probably likes you too. Spoiler, she does.
She does.
Still. I'm really tired of crying. They're at the Chinese New Year celebration. It's very cute.
Because
Boss and OAO are very cute.
Because OAO says, hey, you know, you said you wanted to do something
we
together.
Need to hang out together, yeah, for Chinese
after the
New
exam
Year.
for Chinese. Let's do it. And even in this, and when he asked him, like right after the exam, they walk home and he holds his hand. And like, has like a guttural reaction, of like impulsive reaction of taking his hand out. And it's like, well, aren't you embarrassed? And Boss says, Boss says, of what? Of what? Embarrassed of what?
Embarrassed of what?
Embarrassed of what? Look at me.
Look at
I'm main
us.
visual. We're main visuals right now.
We are main visuals.
Bitch. And so they hold hands. And then in the Chinese celebration, they're together. They're actively holding hands in front of their friends who are with their girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
And like, O is like, I really wish you bozos weren't here.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh my God, great. Isn't that great? Everyone's in a relationship except me. But it's normal. And like, it could have been them. You know what I mean? Like, it's showing in this moment right now. It could have been them and it would have been fine. Boss probably wouldn't be happy, but he would be there because he likes them.
Yeah.
Oh, he's friends with them.
But you know why it can't be the two of them? Because the piano player plays the fucking song that's been playing this whole fucking show. And both OAO starts crying.
OAO starts crying and Boss
turn around the corner and you notice that Tay did
was
come
there.
and he's also weeping. Bilkin can't stop crying in this episode. This episode, the episode before.
You know Bilkin had an IV every night. Just to rehydrate.
I have a headache from just watching.
I get dehydrated just watching them.
I know.
There was one time where I was going to my doctor, just like a normal checkup.
What's the thing you've cried most at?
In the show?
No, ever.
Ever?
Is it like movie or whatever? Is it
movie, like watching media.
Yeah. Is it the one with Aquafina?
Yes, it's the farewell.
The farewell. Yeah.
When when she says when they drive away and she has to wave goodbye and the grandma runs to the car. She runs to the car to wave goodbye.
I just didn't want to be the only one crying anymore.
I hate you so much. I hate you so much.
Oh, is that it? You thought that movie was sad?
She runs to the car. And like just waves. This is insane.
I can't do this again.
You know what the other one is too? Oh my God. And I'm already crying thinking about it. It's Minari. When the barn is burning down and the grandma can't do anything. I had to sit in a corner after that movie and wailed in a corner in my apartment.
This is why I didn't even wear my glasses, because I knew I was going to be crying this whole time.
You're so mean. I'm way more of an emotional person. Like recently, I feel like. Like since I guess the pandemic fucking ruined all of us.
Broke our brains.
But like from the pandemic, watching BLs and stuff and like more like, even like K-dramas, like just watching more melodramatic things. It's gotten me way more emotional just about life.
I've always been this way.
Yes.
I respond to catharsis really easily.
Oh yeah, girl. We're great audience members.
We're great audience members. Feel free to give us any free tickets. Especially if it's comedy, I have a very loud laugh.
Adam is a great laugh, and I'm a great crier in like a show. Or I do this. I do the. Mm.
Ooh.
I did this reading.
They build the tension. I just want to say they build the tension of this so incredibly well that I was crying. Everyone gets in. It's not exactly how it needs to. You want it to work out, but like everyone gets in.
It was not unlike him finding out about in the first episode, right? Like him getting the audition.
I just think like it's built up so well, and the whole series has built up to this moment that I couldn't stop crying. I actually didn't know why. You were like, "What's wrong?" I was like, I don't know. I'm unwell.
I was really surprised at how lovely Oyo's parents were.
Oh my god.
And like it's funny because like obviously there are like the differences in their family are like distinct, right? And I think like Dr. Tom even talked about it of like it's very important in like Thai culture, the class, and like wanting to like go to bank, like to get out, right? But it's very clear that like Oyo's family is like doing the best in like the world that we're seeing. And so, but like still watching them still be so excited and warm and happy for O being like kind of goofy and like is from the beach. Like, I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
But you tell me.
He's sitting in like ankle deep water.
Ankle deep water.
So
like, I don't want to see the result.
Yeah.
And I think like it would have been really easy to just write off that these parents are cold. They don't care.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be at the beginning. I thought it was too,
because it was, but that conversation, looking back at it now from the first episode, is warm. It's like filled with,
it's warm, but it's pragmatic.
Yeah. Yeah. They're just like, we're just trying to be realistic because it's like coming to the wire now.
Right.
And like, you can stay here and do stuff here.
And so often I think when there are shows or stories about a kid who wants to be an artist and the parent who's like, well, you could do this realistic thing instead. It's portrayed as like they aren't rooting for my dreams. But looking back at that conversation, that isn't what they're saying at all. They want him to go for it, but they're also saying like, but if you can't, it's gonna be like it's going to be okay.
You can also do this. Yeah. Did your mom ever give that talk of like, are you sure you want to go to theater?
No, because I have been doing it since I was in first grade. Yeah. So there was no question that I was going to do theater. I think if I was to really ask her now that it's been some years since, I think she
held from saying it.
No. I think she probably felt sad to a degree that I stopped doing theater.
Yeah.
But I don't think she would ever say that to me, to be honest. Because it just became a part of me, but then when I stopped doing school, I was like, well, that's part of me like going to school is like always doing theater. Yeah. So if I'm not in school, why am I so, and it wasn't like I don't love theater and I didn't love acting, but I don't think I'm built for the like rejection that comes with acting, so I just stopped doing it.
You only do it if I cast you in something.
But this is like a performance.
But this is a performance.
I mean, listen, I'm not actually crying.
I'm not actually crying.
Girl, please. Excuse me a second.
My parents didn't really either. It was kind of like, you're going to a good school, you're going to like college. Like that was the goal.
Yeah.
So you're doing it. It wasn't until in college where my dad would be like, so what are you actually doing? What are you actually studying? Like, what are you going to do after school?
I think the most interesting thing about your parents is that your mom would tell you that you weren't allowed to like try to be a chef.
I know, right?
Only
Isn't that
women
crazy? Only
cook.
Yeah. She thought, I think cooking was like, that's not like a professional thing. But she grew up, she owned like businesses where it was like we were selling food. And so I think she was just like thinking about like, it's like a family business, blah, blah, blah. I think she was trying to be like, you can be more professional than that. Which is funny because my sister's a caterer.
Your sister is a caterer.
So, and a very good one.
And we'll drop the link.
If you're in the Philippines,
if you're in Manila,
if you're in Cainta, pwede ka rin mag-order. I-grab naman kahit saan eh. So, kung nasa Manila ka, Marikina, NCR, Joe's Kitchen Delivery, PH. Get the lasagna. Adam had a fucking tray.
I love lasagna. So good.
It's not
so
lasagna.
Good. It's not lasagna. It's like candy. It's so good. It's so good. OAO everybody gets in.
Everyone gets in.
OAO gets in for his first choice. Tay gets into
his second choice. He does not make it. So they are both going for comms.
Don't ask me the names of the schools.
They both go in for comms, but OAO goes to the school that they wanted to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Tay does not. Goes to a different school.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom, the reaction, she's like, "You're going to college. You made it." Da, 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 da. And he is like distraught, disappointed, apologizing to her, saying, "But it's not the school that I want." And she is just like,
"You told everybody I was going to go to the other one. You told everyone
I was already admitted to that." And she's like, "It doesn't. There are other schools."
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in the group chat knows. They're all kind of like awkward about it. OAO is in like a daze. He and Boss are going out to dinner or whatever. Mm-hmm. It felt very like end of La La Land, where it's like,
yes, where she's in the car.
She's in the car, and they're like, "What do you want to do?" And
let's just stop at this jazz club. Yeah.
OAO is not. He's clearly
knows.
Boss knows.
Let's just be real.
Boss knows that he is obviously sad that he and Tay are not going to the same school together.
I don't even think he knows that. I don't even think it is that. I think OAO's sadness genuinely is that they just have stopped
being friends now.
Because they're not he says at the end of the episode, "Don't disappear on me ever again."
Disappear. Yeah,
that is like the thing that was the hardest for OAO.
Yes.
Was that he like lost Tay again.
Yeah.
Again.
Mm-hmm. For something that he did not maliciously want to do in order to take him out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being cast in the stupid school play.
Right.
And him admitting that like, "Oh, I think I like this."
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden he is now like shunned.
Yep.
To now he was just like admitting his feelings and so Boss is like, "Okay, well, let's do something, whatever you want to do." And OAO says, "You can choose whatever." So Boss decides to drop him off at Tay's.
Mm-hmm. But he doesn't see him. It says just is a chance for them to like kind of acknowledge that
Boss
it's not
basically says you should go in there. This is what you're really thinking about. This is what you really want right now, is to be able to see him again. So go, and I will be okay. I'll be sad, but I'll be okay. And he OAO goes up, but then he does not visit.
He says the same thing that Hoon says about Tay's mom. Boss says that he will be sad if he sees that OAO is sad.
Yeah. And then OAO does not go in because he says, "I don't want to see him sad."
Yeah.
Kind of showing that like he carries that much love for Tay.
Yeah.
And he apologizes, and like, he apologizes to Boss, and Boss says, it's okay. So they're basically,
that scene is heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. It's the end of Sleepless in Seattle. Well, Walter tells her to go
because no one has done anything wrong.
No one's done anything wrong. It's
right?
just the admission of like
it's not you. Yeah,
it's just not. It's not us.
Not this time.
Not that it's not meant. It's not right.
Sure.
It's just it's not.
It's not us.
It's not us.
Tarn comes over to talk to Tay, and she's made him this drawing of him in full
geesh,
in full dynasty geesh.
Yeah,
with a purple hibiscus flower over his heart. And she's like, "What were you going to confess to me in gym class?"
Like, "Remember the promise? I said that I was going to give you an answer about being your girlfriend after
But first.
What were you going to confess to me before exams.
And he says that he basically just wants to be, he friend zones her. He wants to be her friend. He's like, my feelings have changed, and I'm glad I can just have you as a friend.
And have you as just as a good friend.
And again,
like Bilkins, like acting, you are seeing that she's cracking. It's a little more evocative. Like it's a little more obvious here because like,
even though Tay doesn't,
even if Tay still is like, what's wrong? She is like showing a mask that she is so happy for Tay.
She is smiling that whole. She's going to say at the end, "I'm ready to be your girlfriend," because he says before that, he says all the things of like, "I never used you. I did always like you.
The time that I was hitting on you, I really wanted to be your boyfriend."
Right. And so she was like, "Great, that's all I needed to hear." And then he was like, "And then also, just so you know,
and then
I don't like
now
you anymore.
That I don't feel that way.
Right.
I'm just happy that we could be really good friends because I really treasure you.
Yeah,
as a good friend."
Mm-hmm.
And you see her heart break, but she is still smiling because, I mean, it's that thing of like, what he's really opening up to me.
It's the first time.
It's the first time they're like connected.
That they're like, it's a genuine friendship isn't predicated on something happening in the future.
Yes, it's not predicated on like, oh, he's trying to get to her.
These hibiscuses.
Yes, honey. Yeah. It's not like just doing bits in class because school is over. Right. That part of your life is done now. Mm-hmm. And she cries. And he's like, well, why are you crying? And she's like, well, I have to pee.
It's so funny.
It's funny. But she's like basically just like laughing and crying through it because for her, she's also realizing, oh, it's done also.
Yeah. I think it's amazing to have these two scenes back to back.
I know.
And the way that, again, there's no antagonist in the show. Like even Tae, who is the most frustrating character probably of the whole show.
Decisions.
Correct.
He's not.
And he has been yelled at by Tarn.
Yes.
She is still. Everyone just wants the best for everyone else on the show. And it's like a warm blanket watching the show because there's no secret villain. We haven't made the girl like some shrew who like is like a monster. Like she's just a girl who really liked this guy that really made her laugh a lot and is very nice to her and just found out that he doesn't actually like her the same way anymore. And it sucks. But
she still likes him as like a person.
Okay, we've come to the end. Oeo shows up to the noodle shop in his uniform, his new school uniform.
Because he's doing
his faculty uniform.
Because he's doing his promise?
Because he's doing his vow. And he says hello to Tae's mom. She offers to make him some noodles. He's like, no, I have to start my journey to the Cape before sunset. So he starts running. Tae pulls up next to him on the little motorcycle.
With a car full of coconuts.
A car of coconuts. And they go to the shrine first. Tae tells him that he's going to join him on the run. They run from they pray at the shrine. They run through the classroom. They run past the beach. Their special beach. And then they get to the Cape. And it's cloudy. But they're going to go all the way out there anyway. They finally make it all the way out. And the sun has come out. The clouds have parted. And they... I'm so tired of crying. They get to the Cape. They fulfilled their promise to each other. The only quibble I have with the show, genuinely, is like, how did the conversation go between Oeo and his parents that he was like, I'm actually not going to accept the position in the faculty. I want to take the test instead. Because there's in no world, I'm sorry, in no world, unless he lied to his parents and like, oh, they made a mistake. That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only thing that bumped me. Because I would be like, no parent in their right mind would be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, we saw one parent already act.
Right. But even if he was like, well, I only got it because he gave it up, they'd be like, and go. We know you're dumb. You're not going to get in through the test. Get in. Anyway, they're at the Cape and they finally have the conversation of like, Boss and me are no longer together. Tarn and me are just friends.
And then O asks, and what about us?
And he doesn't answer.
He doesn't answer.
And O freaks out.
Yes, and takes it as like, okay, I understand. And he's like, and whatever happens, whether we are friends or not, whether you hate me or not, even if we go back going to rivals, the one thing I don't want that you can't do is to disappear on me.
I just have to be in your life.
I just want to be in your life. It doesn't matter if we... It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't disappear on me.
Yep.
And he's like crying, right?
Yeah.
This has really hurt him.
Because he loves
him.
But he is willing to accept whatever
it is
he can get from Tay because
that's how important they are
to each other.
And Tay says, then I want to be your boyfriend.
That's how the show ends.
And the show ends and they hold each other and the show ends. And thank you to our channel managers. Thank you to our subtitle team.
Thank you to the Kleenex factory. Okay. Great. It's a great show. Should we do our MVP? Or do you have anything to say about this scene?
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's perfect.
It's perfect. It is like, I mean, true. I mean, not to get Joseph Campbell again, but it's like, yeah, it's like the blending of the two worlds now that he's crossed over the world of like being gay or whatever.
Yeah.
Now he's able to accept things that he loves about his current world and also what he wants to take in this new world that he's in. Well, Adam, it's time to tier these girls.
Tier them up.
And it's funny because sometimes I don't really like being like, let's rank, right? I don't like ranking.
It's silly. But
it's silly. It's fun. If you like it,
it's not serious.
It's not serious. So let's do it. It's
so clear what this is. I mean, like, this is
you want to scrub your memory so that you can go
watch
through
this again.
All of those emotions that
100%.
All of those emotions. The good and the bad.
So the next option would be I'm rewatching this to keep it in syndication, which is probably not I mean, I would rewatch this.
But it's not a comfort watch.
But it is not a comfort watch.
That tier is such a comfort watch coded.
Is
complicated fave,
which is the most insane thing to consider putting this in.
It's complicated because I'm tired of crying.
The complication is I have run out of Kleenex.
Yeah, I'm a tired girl.
And then below that is I read that.
I read it on
Sorry that happened to you.
It's a lot of drama. And then what are Twice fans called?
Once. So yeah, it's obviously I'm scrubbing my memory.
I think it's once because we've seen it once and
we're never going to watch it again. It's obviously I'm scrubbing my memory.
Because the fact that he can get you through all of those emotions,
it's
makes it that like, yes, I'm not, like a fucking masochist to feel all of that, but the fact that it makes me able to go through all that.
There were things, I mean, genuinely, this is a show that if I needed to cry, there are definitely scenes that I would be able to put on and like immediately start crying.
End of episode 3 for me. And then end of episode 4.
The scene at the hammock in episode 4 when he asks him,
like the breakup.
Yeah, the breakup.
Yeah,
for sure.
I could watch episode 2 as a comfort watch.
Yeah, episode 2 was good. Yeah, episode 2 was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, episode 2 was good. 1 and 2. Yeah.
Okay. The Matrix. We've got plot driven, character driven, and then for the gays, for the straights.
Mm-hmm.
For the queers, for the straights. this is for the queers. I think.
More so.
I think the experience... okay. I don't think it's exclusively for the queers, right? Nothing ever is.
I think it's on that side
but
of
it's
the
on that
Matrix,
side.
But I don't think it's like all the way
But
on the
a
end.
queer person watching the show will have a deeper understanding. If we only knew queer people.
If I've ever met... I wish I've met one.
I know someone... I think one of those people watched the show, right? One of them behind you. If you just take a look. If you just turn your head to the right. One of those two, I think, watched the show. Trying to remember which one.
And then character driven for sure.
For sure.
For sure.
Deeply character driven.
Extremely character driven. Like probably at the end of the character driven.
So deep that maybe the actors are telling the story. You know what I mean? Like,
maybe they're not acting.
Maybe they're not acting.
They're acting.
They're
I want to be very clear. They're acting the house down.
They're acting. Which, I mean, like, I loved getting all the context from, like, our previous guests of, like, this was a surprise to everyone. Because the last thing they did, they were kind of, like, tropey and, like, fun.
Good. Yeah.
Second couple.
Yeah.
Fun.
It's insane that they were considered rookies at the time that this came out. Because, like, this is, like...
Not... I mean... I'm assuming they went to school for acting, right?
It's genuinely insane watching this.
Yeah. But, like, get people good material. They can do it. Mm-hmm. Get people good material that they can relate to and, like, can really connect to.
Yep.
And they can do it. Okay, the overall MVPs.
There's only two options.
Yeah. Which one will you take?
I'm going to take Bilkin. Yeah.
It does feel like episode 5 is like really like we're watching the result of like Bilkin of Tay's character, right? So episode 5 rested a lot on Bilkin's performance. Mm-hmm. Episode 4 was to me felt really focused on OAO. And PP's
more shared, for sure.
But like the depths that his character went, it just.
I mean, it is Tay's story.
Yeah,
totally. OAO is the second lead of the show,
right?
Tay is the first lead.
Not that OAO is the catalyst, but like he is the what's causing Tay to
spiral. Yeah, and have all these realizations about himself. But I think that Bilkin from episode 1, when he has like he has that like barb he throws out to OAO, and he has that realization where he actually hurt his feelings.
Yeah,
and it's so small.
It's so small, but that like set off like, oh, this actor understands the smallest changes can be captured like that.
Yep.
Yeah. For me, it was, I mean, like, for Bilkin's performances, his physicality is so crazy good.
It's so good.
That, like, you believe that this is how this character...
whenever he walks around, he, like, kicks his feet in the grass or in the sand or whatever.
Him rolling around, him, like, putting this coconut in his face, just like
smelling the paper. He
is so physically like in tune with the emotion, and like
it's also just like how much is on paper, how much is like
he's just
the director, how much is he bringing, like it's so it is a fully realized, like,
it feels like when you're
enveloping a character,
when you're watching someone who was like a physical comedy person, being able to use the same skill of like being so in tune with your body into like drama.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, it just feels, because it's like people, I don't know, like you in performances and dramatic performances, you always assume it's like sulky. It's like stoic.
Yeah.
But he's like bringing such a weird, like physically manic performance that it's so interesting to watch.
Yeah. And you can't. It would be very hard to pitch this in a direction where Tae is very irritating.
I know.
And as frustrating as his character can be in the show,
you still root for
purposefully,
him.
obviously.
You still want him to make the right decision.
All I wanted at the end was just for at the scene at the firecrackers, I like started crying because I was like, just tell him you love him. Because you love him so much.
Yeah. I will give it to PP Crit.
Oh my god.
It's chilling, the bra scene. Chilling.
It's incredible. I mean,
it's truly one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
That felt like queer art house film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That scene, the towing the line, all of the like at the very end of episode 3, from like the watching the movie into like after the shower, where they're like smelling each other, like all of those physicalities like are so specific in like the gay experience that it's just it was amazing.
Yeah. I said it last week with Dr. Tom, but there is a strength that he brings to OAO that
doesn't lean in on like what we usually think of strength as masculine.
Yes, it's still I don't want to say that OAO is pitched feminine. I think like PP in his regular life is like plays more with the two gender, the binary, and like kind of like making it really muddy in the middle, which is super exciting. This character is not necessarily that, but he is masculine, but he is a softer masculinity than Tae.
Yeah.
And his softness but his strength both come throughout this series multiple times. And it is like a real achievement because OAO, the same thing I was saying, like a lesser actor would take this and just make this like a soft boy, demure, like princess, meek character. He doesn't do that. And
he holds his own.
It's what makes these characters not feel like tropes.
Yeah.
And so often in BL, they're pulling these very stock character energies. And it's the easiest way to access like a romance story because you already know kind of where they're going. So then you can just like plop right in the middle and like get to the end. Like, and that's the fun of like romance is like figuring out how everything's going to work out to get to the happily ever after. But because the show isn't necessarily doing that, it is doing a coming of age story. It has to make these characters way more specific so that we can know the world that we're surrounding ourselves in and everything. So like everybody being a fully realized actual character is like very integral to the show. Also, I just want to say, if the whole thing about Sex and the City was like New York is the 5th character, Phuket is the third lead of the show.
I mean, I really appreciate Dr. Thomas saying like there's a cultural aspect of like living in Phuket and like a feeling of like we work so hard to get you to Bangkok.
Right.
So there is a feeling of that, but it's still so like warm and like love and support will always be here as you achieve your dreams in Bangkok.
And it doesn't make Phuket Phuket
like sad or
like gritty and cool. Like it's and it doesn't make it look like it's like this idyllic place.
No,
like
it feels like home.
It doesn't look pastoral.
Yeah, it's
but
home.
It is
warm.
It's lived in. It's like
it's full of love.
It's so beautiful. The color grading in this show is like incredible.
Yeah.
How they feel. I can't get over the way this show looks.
Yeah.
And how intentional every shot of the show is. I didn't even get to talk about last week. One of my favorite shots was when Tae is like working on the scrapbook for OAO. and his mom like comes down the stairs, and it's just a long tracking shot of her talking to him as she comes down the stairs completely out of frame and then comes in the room. And I just like it. I know what that house feels like.
Yeah.
I know what the resort feels like.
Yeah.
I know what the school feels like because everything was so tangible and real and not
just like a location.
It wasn't
they
artifice.
Shot at.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's enough.
I think that's enough of Itsay.
And if you join our Patreon today for Variety,
we watched all the behind the scenes.
We watched all the behind the scenes.
And then the power is to the berets, the bows, the beret club. The power is to the beret club on Patreon on what to watch next. We're not immediately going into I Promise You the Moon. Because, Mama, give us a damn break. Are you kidding me?
Crying.
Give me a damn break.
Give me a damn break. Yes.
But if you'd like to select what we're watching next, hop onto the Patreon.
Join the Patreon.
Join the Patreon because then you will get the power to decide what
you can go
next.
back and binge all of our reactions if you missed us watching it. If you want to watch it again with us. If you want to watch me cry for an hour and 28 minutes for episode 4, feel free.
It's there. We are silent the entire episode 4.
Thanks.
The Ampliverse.